Tashi and the Himalayan Rescue. High up in the towering peaks of the Himalayas, nestled in a small, quiet village, lived a boy named Tashi. He was adventurous, loved climbing the mountain trails, and dreamed of becoming a great mountain guide like his father. But unlike his father, who was known for being responsible and reliable, Tashi had a habit of getting distracted and leaving things unfinished. One crisp morning, Tashi's father was preparing for an important trek. He had been hired to guide a group of travelers up the steep mountain path to a sacred monastery hidden in the clouds. But that morning, he wasn't feeling well. His head ached, and he could barely stand. "Tashi," his father called, his voice weak. "I need you to take over the trek today. The travelers are counting on us to guide them safely." Tashi's eyes widened in surprise. "Me? Alone?" His father nodded. "I know you can do it, but remember, it's your responsibility to keep them safe. You must be careful, stay focused, and make sure everyone is taken care of." Tashi's heart raced. He had always wanted to prove himself, but he wasn't sure if he was ready. Still, he couldn't let his father or the travelers down. "I'll do it," Tashi said with determination. His father smiled weakly and handed him the map, which showed the safest route to the monastery. "Follow the map carefully and don't stray from the path," he said. "It's your duty to bring them back safely." Tashi nodded and hurried to meet the travelers. There were 5 of them, all eager to see the monastery. They smiled warmly at Tashi, and he tried his best to seem confident. The group set off up the winding mountain trail, the sun rising behind them, casting golden light over the snow-capped peaks. The air was crisp, and the mountains loomed tall around them. Tashi led the way, the map clutched tightly in his hands. At first, everything went smoothly. Tashi followed the map, pointing out interesting sights and telling the travelers stories about the mountains. But as they climbed higher, the trail grew steeper, and Tashi began to feel the weight of his responsibility. He had to make sure everyone was safe, and the higher they went, the more dangerous the path became. After a few hours of trekking, they reached a fork in the trail. One path led up a steep, rocky slope that seemed like a shortcut, while the other path was longer but safer. Tashi hesitated. He knew his father's instructions were clear: stick to the safe path. But the shortcut was tempting, and he wanted to impress the travelers by getting them to the monastery faster. "Let's take the shortcut," Tashi said, making a quick decision. The group followed him up the rocky slope, but as they climbed, the path grew narrower and more difficult. Loose rocks tumbled down the mountain, and the travelers began to struggle. "Tashi, are you sure this is the right way?" one of the travelers asked nervously. Tashi's stomach tightened. He wasn't sure anymore, but he didn't want to admit he had made a mistake. "Yes, this is the way," he said, though his voice wavered. But as they climbed higher, disaster struck. One of the travelers slipped on the loose rocks and tumbled down the slope. The others gasped in fear as Tashi rushed to help. "Hold on," he shouted, his heart pounding. With great effort, Tashi managed to pull the traveler to safety, but it was clear that the group was shaken. The traveler who had fallen had hurt his ankle, and the others were worried about continuing. "I'm sorry," Tashi said, his voice full of guilt. "I shouldn't have taken the shortcut. I was trying to get us there faster, but it was a mistake. It's my responsibility to keep you safe, and I failed." The travelers looked at him, and though they were shaken, they appreciated his honesty. "We all make mistakes, Tashi," one of them said kindly. "What matters is that we get back safely." Tashi took a deep breath and looked at the map again. This time, he would follow his father's instructions. No shortcuts, no distractions. Just focus on getting the group back safely. "We'll take the safe path from here," Tashi said firmly. "I'll make sure we get to the monastery, but first, we need to take care of you," he added, looking at the traveler with the injured ankle. With renewed focus, Tashi led the group back down the steep slope and onto the safer path. He moved slowly, making sure to check that everyone was okay and keeping a close eye on the injured traveler. As the hours passed, Tashi felt a sense of pride growing within him. He had taken responsibility for his actions, admitted his mistake, and was now doing everything he could to fulfill his duty. It wasn't easy, but he knew it was the right thing to do. Finally, Just as the sun began to set, they reached the monastery. The travelers sighed with relief, grateful for Tashi's care and leadership. "You did it, Tashi," one of the travelers said with a smile. "You got us here safely." Tashi smiled, feeling a deep sense of accomplishment. "Thank you. I just had to remember what my father always says, being responsible means taking care of those who depend on you." The group spent the night at the monastery, enjoying the peace and quiet of the mountains. And the next morning, Tashi led them safely back down the mountain, taking no shortcuts this time. When they returned to the village, Tashi's father was waiting, looking much healthier. "How did it go?" his father asked. Tashi smiled. "It wasn't easy, but I learned something important. Being responsible means admitting when you're wrong, doing what's best for others, and making sure you finish what you start." His father beamed with pride. "You've learned the most important lesson, Tashi. I'm proud of you." From that day on, Tashi approached everything with a new sense of responsibility. Whether it was guiding travelers up the mountain, helping his family at home, or taking care of his own things, he knew the importance of being accountable and reliable. And every time he looked up at the towering Himalayas, he felt a sense of pride, knowing that he was growing into the responsible mountain guide his father always knew he could be.